Sure, sure.
See what we should have been recording since we
Oh, it's
had.
all good.
Yeah. So let's talk about like your life a little bit. Tell me some of your roots, obviously from Detroit, and just really being like emerging in this 2020 situation as one of the most acclaimed works of art. But just talk about your history just a little bit, just for folks that don't know.
Yeah, so born and raised in Detroit, Michigan. Lived initially in Southwest Detroit, moved to the East Side when I was 7, and the East Side shaped me. I've been on the East Side ever since. Was a kid that like really kind of was around music at an early age. My father was like really into jazz. We had a local radio station called WJZZ, and WJZZ would play jazz 24/7. So I always tell people like my entrance in the music in a lot of ways was jazz. Like one of the first records I probably remember was like Michael Frank's Artie and hearing Grover Washington and Ronnie Laws and all that kind of stuff. Like that was kind of embedded in my DNA, as well as like Parliament Funkadelic and all that boogie that was going on at the time in the early 80s. And that's what kind of formed me, and socially, I went to a school that was nestled in a neighborhood in Detroit called the Cass Corridor. And the Cass Corridor was like a multicultural center in which a lot of people were going to get educated at Wayne State. And so it was funny because even though the demographics of Detroit is like 85% Black, I was in a school in the heart of the city that was, extremely multicultural. And so a lot of my first social experiences was around kids from all walks of life, kids from the projects, kids from upper middle class neighborhoods. A lot of immigrant families were there. So that's what kind of shaped me. And I think my parents intentionally kind of put me in the presence of a lot of different influences, creative influences from an early stage. And, ended up going to Cass Technical High School, which is where Big Sean went, was where I went there way before Sean, though.
Right.
Graduated in 94. Diana Ross went there. Lily Tomlin went there. Donald Byrd went there.
Wow.
Two Miss Americas went there. Like Cass is serious. So, but my deep love of hip hop took me to New York eventually for a minute to go to Parsons School of Design. And also, I mean, my interest was to pursue music. And, and build with my cousin Kid Worthy, who was like one of the first promoters of hip hop music in the South at this time, was like working at, he was at that time working with Steve Salem, who used to manage UTFO. He had a record label called Motor Jam that was built off of Snow's Informer.
Right. Oh, I just saw a video of MC Shan talking about Snow's Informer. That was a crazy hit record, still getting paid off of that.
Yeah, man. And that song was huge. And that song kind of was pivotal in my trajectory, ironically. Because one thing I always think about is like the quantum effects of other people's motions that end up, parlaying into your process. And so because of that song, Steve Salem started the record label. My cousin was working for the record label. It was on Bleecker and Broadway. And I remember going there like every day after school from Parsons, which was like on 13th and 6th, and I walk over to Bleecker and Broadway. I remember Tyson Beckford used to always be standing out front talking to women and shit. Anyway, so I would go after school and listen to all the demo tapes that he had, because at this time it's 94. So I moved to New York right in between Illmatic and Ready to Die.
Wow, that's crazy.
So, yeah, man. So I would go into the label and just sit in the label for hours and just listen to demo tapes, like everything that was sent in, because he was the A&R. My cousin was the A&R of the label. So lo and behold, I stumbled on this tape of some guys from Detroit called MF911, who had been signed to Next Plateau Records, which was Salt Pepper's label, you know. And they were mentored by Said G and Chuck D. I think Chuck D even gave them their name. So this is after Next Plateau folded, so they were trying to get another deal. So they were trying to get a deal with Motor Jam. So, you know, at this time, your phone number and info was all on the cassette with your bio picture and all of that. Right. You know what I'm saying? So I was like, I'm gonna call. So I called him, and we started talking. It was a guy named Anthony Singleton from the group, an incredible producer, and I feel like he's like a Dilla level talent. You know what I'm saying? Like he was production wise, like he's brilliant.
Yeah.
And because like if Dilla kind of was from like the Pete Rock school, the evolution of that, I feel like Anthony was kind of like a disciple of Extra P. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Like he was more kind of in that tip, like more like not chopping so much, but like building around samples and that kind of a thing.
Right.
Anyway, so we started talking and got cool. And so I'm at Parsons, needed a place to stay in the middle of the semester, didn't have nowhere to go. They didn't have housing. I'm like, oh, what am I gonna do? So I was like, I'm gonna take a leave of absence. And so I was telling him this. He was like, well, if you take a leave of absence, you come back, let's start recording. So I came back to Detroit and immediately started recording with him, and he was my entrance into like recording.
Now you were a rapper at this point?
Yeah, I was a rapper. Yeah, okay. Yeah. And so it ended by 95, ended up turning into a group called The Foundation. And so it was a bunch of us. Actually, one of the members of the group was a guy named Chaos from Chaos and Maestro, who he was our they were our Public Enemy. You know, like they were our political rap group. And actually Chuck was always a big supporter of them too. Yeah. So Chaos was in the group, Anthony was in the group, and a whole bunch of other people that became like, you know, local legends, you know, were a part of this group also. And that was my start. And then by like 96, everybody kind of went their own separate ways because nobody could agree with contracts and all this kind of stuff. And this is when I was like getting into a lot of other stuff like Bjork. Like Bjork kind of turned me out.
Oh, this is on everything. I was literally just playing Bjork to my daughter the other day. I was like, yo, you got to listen to some other stuff. You listening to Lil Durk. All right, Lil Durk's cool. No problem. But listen to this Bjork and let's talk about it. So I'm sorry. I love her, man.
No.
Yeah.
What was her response to it?
You know, it was like whatever. Like, you know, yeah. I mean, I ain't gonna lie. It was kind of whatever, but you know, we gonna start sprinkling her with that other stuff.
Yeah,
too.
Man. Yeah. So, yeah, Bjork reminded me again that there's a world beyond hip hop. But at the same time, like it felt subtly informed by it to me too, you know, just in terms of like, I think we, you know, people, hip hoppers, whatever, like we kind of like set the stage for there to be technology that a lot of people ran with to make all types of stuff.
Yeah.
Like we created a need for machines that now empower people to do all types of stuff. Yeah. But those machines happen as a result of our creativity, you know. But yeah, Bjork was that one that like, it started with Bjork, and then it was like Portishead, Massive Attack,
Yeah.
Aphex Twin and all that stuff.
Oh yeah, oh my God. I used to love all those groups, but Aphex Twin, I liked him because he was super weird. His visuals were crazy. People used to think I was crazy. But I still have a VHS tape of one of his videos. Like I just bought a single video. But anyway,
man. Aphex Twin, I mean, like he was primary too, because to me, like he was pushing the technology in a way in which, like, it was like shit that people would never think to do with a breakbeat. You know what I'm saying? Like,
right.
You know, he was out there. But like, I started to get into that stuff, but a lot of the guys around me, they were like, man, what the hell are you listening to? You know, so it, you know, and I wanted to rap over stuff like that.
Right.
And that's what led me to production.
Okay.
Because nobody else around me was listening to that or wanted to go in that direction. And I was curious to see, like, you know, what rapping would sound like over that, you know, like, you know. So another record too that I love was that Estero record. That,
of course, the first one.
Yeah.
Bruh, yeah. Oh my God, yo, that actual album kind of low key saved my life. Like musically, like it came at a period where I was going through it, and that album came through in the clutch. To this day, I'm cool with Estero, and one of my coworkers, well, one of my former employees, she and I used to love Estero. We bonded over that chick, man, for real.
Man, that album was just so low key. It influenced Manger. You know what I'm saying? Like,
okay.
Influenced Manger. You know, that's one of them records. Stereo Lab too. That's a Loops definitely influenced Manger.
Yeah.
But yeah, man. So I started producing about 97, and then 2000 I started the studio in the basement in my mother's crib on the east side, and that was when Boldy and everybody started to show up. You know. So
did you continue to rap, or did you stop, or
I never stop. To this day I still do it. I just, you know, and a lot of times too, like I'm an off the head guy. So like I would record, I got thousands and thousands of you know, tracks of me just rhyming off the head on stuff, you know, like that was what I did, you know. Still do, but I think for me it became interesting to tell the story without saying words, like just using the sound. Now that became really interesting to me, and I just kind of went in that direction, man. And so I started making instrumental projects, and that kind of turned into and eventually like me working with Boldy, but it's something that I never stopped, and you know, like it's I think it's primary to still to what I do, you know.
Now I saw something about your music being used for healing, and oddly enough, they said Boldy is healing on this Manger project. What how do you, like, what's that relationship like, and also what's your philosophy around music? Is that it, or is it beyond that?
Yeah, I mean, no, it's not even beyond that. I never intended to have a career in music. And I tell you, it was funny too, because when I would go out to New York and be with my cousin, and he was always going from label to label, sitting down with people, and you know, like I would always tag along with him, you know. And so I'd be at all kinds of industry stuff, you know, like I would be at you know, different label offices, and you know, I was with him at the Palladium that night that Biggie got on stage with Pac, and like I was there that night.
Wow.
And like, you know, and like I remember being in the lecture office and them talking about the second Leaders album, and like, and I realized from an early age that like it's a business, you know. in a lot of ways, you know, artists can easily become products. And one thing that got me through, I would say, living in a city like this that can get intense was I could always return to peace through creating purely and honestly. You know, because I think sometimes when we do it to get to a certain place or attain certain things, it inhibits or alters the trajectory of our creation.
Right.
In a way in which now it doesn't serve our wholeness. It serves us attaining something that we feel will make us whole. So for me, I always tell my young guys, like the process is the promised land, not the outcome, not what comes from it. So I'm completely detached from what happened after that point.
Gotcha.
So the thing was, when I met him, he was going through so much in the streets. He was 17 when I met him.
Right.
The thing about Boldy is that as a rapper, a lot of rappers rap up. Like what they rap is like it's a brighter, bigger version of what's really happening. Boldy raps down. The shit that's really going on in his life ain't even making the records.
Right. Yo, okay. I can believe that. I saw an interview and I'm like, yo, he's telling this story. That's kind of crazy. So yeah, I can believe that.
People don't know how real this is, bro. Like, you know, and like if you really listen to the album, like the beginning, he had a baby on the way. By the middle of it, it was twins that didn't end up making it because of some shit that shouldn't have happened, right? Like the things he was going through with that process was real. And literally, you know, for me, it's about creating space for people to embark on a process that allows them to like restore their own health within themselves. And so one of the things I've done for years is actually work with youth in the city of Detroit, doing art therapy with them through a youth program. And I also work with youth creating music. But the premise of how I work always is like, you can go anywhere creatively, but let's talk about why you're going where you're going creatively. And a lot of times that opens up a dialogue now that allows us to sort of like penetrate the layers of our own protection, to kind of like make contact with ourselves in a way in which we're actually healing the things that are affecting how we live and express, you know. So for me, like, I intentionally have always been a person that's like, I figure out how to eat, but I'm gonna always create purely, you know. And I didn't know that this shit was gonna happen with the album. I had no idea, you know, like literally we was just trying to move 500 records, 500 vinyl records. Wow. That was it. That's like crazy. We didn't even think about the internet or the digital shit. We was just trying to press up 500 records.
Wow. That's what pure creation does, though. Unexpected things happen out of that.
Yeah,
that spirit.
Man.
Yeah.
Exactly. And you said it best. And like, for me, I think that's the beauty of it. It's like everything is within you to facilitate your greatest experience with life, because everything that you can seek outside of yourself physically is only going to trigger an emotion or a feeling that you already possess within yourself. Right. So cut out the goddamn middleman, you know what I'm saying? Like, go straight to the source, you know? So like, I love the idea of creating things that were just created out of love and not for reception, that actually enter into the lexicon of people's visibility to where they can go, wow, like, instead of just celebrating it or worshiping it, saying like, man, maybe I'll embark on my own process of my personal truth. And that's hopefully what it is, you know, because one thing Boldy said to me, I didn't even realize. He was like, you know, I was talking about like creating a space for him to just grow and heal. And like, we was all doing that for each other, but like, he was like, it worked. I'm like, what you mean it worked? He was like, because look at then and look at now, because right after, because here's the thing about this record too. This is really like a retroactive debut album.
Yeah, definitely, absolutely. Yeah, for real. Because
right,
a lot of people, I'm gonna keep it real with you. A lot of people just heard of him this year, this
right,
album. Yeah.
right. And so if you think about it, you know, like when we finished this process, which the original recordings were from 2007 to 2010, as we were wrapping up, the Cool Kids were getting hot.
Right.
So Chuck English from the Cool Kids is his actual cousin.
Mm-hmm.
And they had black mags, and like they set, to me, they're like the Run DMC of the internet age.
Mm-hmm.
Like they was the first ones that like really set it off to. It's like, oh, you can do this shit strictly with the internet.
Yeah, that's real.
You know what I'm saying? And like they was the poster childs for like this new, you know, this whole new thing that, you know, now is the center of the universe. But he started working with Chuck after that. And actually the last song on Manger is the song that started his career.
Wow.
Because the first song that he did was Getting Flicked, which was on the Tackle Box mixtape that the Cool Kids put out.
Mm-hmm.
That was originally our song. And then Chuck was like, man, you gotta let me use this for our thing. And then he set it to that, and that started his career. So he went way this way, like he was off to the races then.
Right.
And I'm still in the hood. And next thing you know, like I meet musicians, and this thing kind of like grows and develops over years of just building intimate rapport with musicians.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, just completely like I recorded so much shit that like it took a while to even get to all of it, because everybody was coming to my crib just laying stuff and laying stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, well, explain that though. Explain the process of creating Manger, and you know, it's so musical and it's dense and it's almost frenetic. Like it's like you have to listen. You know, musically you have to listen and pay attention. It changes in the middle, you know, during the song. And then also hearing that they were vocals from past, bringing those back, but you know, it's I mean, I ain't gonna lie, like I sent it to quite a few people just today, and just asked them to listen to it, you know, just because of the way
Thank you. Appreciate that, bro.
Yeah. So talk about that.
Yeah, man. The process, I never want to do that shit again, bro.
Right.
Let me tell you something. So I don't know if familiar are with equipment, right? So this whole album, can you see this? This is the that's the VS 1880. And I had the entire record on this machine, on the internal hard drive, for like 12 years, bro. And so the digital recorder, which is all the rave before DAWs came into existence, was everything was recorded into that. And I had an EPS and Sonic EPS, which is like the granddaddy of the ASR 10.
We had that.
You had that?
Yeah, my brother still has his. Yeah, he still has it.
Man, tell him never let it go.
Okay.
But yeah, all that was done on the EPS and a VS 1880 digital recorder. And so yeah, like at that time when we started, because he had already been recording at my house for like 7 years before we even started working on the record, you know, and we had never made songs together. He would come and bring beats or whatever and rap over them. But he had never really rapped over my stuff until 2007. And so 2007 is when we started recording. And at that time, like, it was just kind of like stripped down boom bap, you know what I'm saying? And like, it would be like a chop sample, kick snares, some hats, and then he rapped to that. And I thought that was pretty much it. And then, you know, people just kind of like started showing up. And the thing about the 1880 is, like, you can only record up to 6 tracks before you start having to bounce things. So basically, I can record 6 things, and then if I'm recording anything else, I have to take, say, track 1 and track 2, and then bounce that to track 8. But now I can't separate track 1 and track 2. They're together now. So you're making final mixing decisions in the process of creating songs.
Right.
So imagine, like, 8 people play on one track, and then they play for like a half an hour. And it's not like I'm just hitting record and letting it fly. Like, what you hear is me cutting up a lot of stuff. Right. Like, sometimes it's somebody just playing 4 or 8 bars, and I just chop it up so many different ways. You think they're playing through the entire song.
Right. That's what it sounds like. Definitely.
You know, so one thing about it is, like, I wanted to do a record. Like, I feel like there was a lot of hip hop records that use jazz as a reference point or use other genres as a reference point. And one thing that I've always said, like, to people, to me, like, and the reason why hip hop is still around, because it's not a sound, it's an energy. And the energy continues to live and thrive because it's always transforming itself. And one thing that I wanted to do was go beyond just kind of like using other genres as a reference point. Like, the spirit is already in us. We can do whatever the hell we want from that point. And so for me, it was about, like, Ornette Coleman means a lot to me. You know what I'm saying? Coltrane means a lot to me. Like, and kind of allowing oneself to be in the space where you don't feel bound. Like, I was telling somebody the other day, I remember hearing Night of the Living Bassheads on the radio for the first time. And literally, it was like hearing crack. It was like you were tweaking. It was, you know, it was fast, it was frenetic, it was loud, it was noisy, and it was transformative.
Facts.
Like, hip hop was not the same after that record.
Facts.
And so for me, like, you know, and two, I feel like in a lot of ways what I do on this record is like a flowery version of the Bomb Squad, you know.
Flowery? I wouldn't say that. Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say that, but
I like flowers, man.
Okay, all right, okay. Hey, man,
you know, yeah. I'm saying like.
I know what you're saying.
You know, like it's a blossoming kind of you know.
It's not. Those guys used to stomp on records and you know, destroy things and then put it on the turntable.
Yeah, and like, it became interesting to me because I felt like he was going so dark with it because it was real.
Yeah.
Like, it allowed me to be extremely colorful and expressive sonically. And two, one thing that I also wanted to do was like challenge the relationship between the rapper and the sound that is present with the rapper. In the sense that I feel like a lot of times as producers, we create the music to be like a backdrop for the rapper. And so during the verses, the music opens up and then he raps and then chorus comes and it builds back and then it steps back to like, you're the star of this. And he was in a position in his life and at a time where he was, you know, like sometimes people be like, man, I don't know, like this, you know, the instruments sound like they overwhelming him. It's like, hell yeah, his life was over. You got it.
Yeah.
Like, that's what this is about. Like, I wanted to create a living the living, breathing, morphing world that he was in.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like somebody be like, well, certain parts of it are abrupt. It's like you ever be standing on a corner with somebody and everything is good and y'all enjoying each other, and 2 seconds later people screaming and you know what I'm saying, and you hearing car screeches and you hearing gunshots and like that. 2 seconds ago,
Mm-hmm.
it was beautiful.
Yeah. And
then 2 seconds later it was chaos.
Yeah.
And so like I wanted, you know, and Bomb Squad fashion and like, you know, the whole thing of like constructing a world around him. I always looked at it like it's as if, you know, he's within a fishbowl and he's immersed in this environment, and you're watching him through the fishbowl, immersed in this environment that he's consumed by at times, you know. And also too, like, I wanted to show like there's an immense strength and vulnerability also,
mm-hmm.
you know. Mm-hmm. Because in that vulnerability now you kind of have to rely on intuition to get through it.
Right. Right.
You know.
Yeah.
And accept that things beyond you are out of your control.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say, how representative is this project of Detroit overall?
It's Detroit to the core, because it's a lot of inside stuff that probably only a lot of Detroiters are going to get.
Okay.
You know, so the album begins with Jimmy Boggs, who Jimmy Boggs is an activist, passed in the early 90s, city of Detroit. Jimmy met with Martin and Malcolm. Like, people just think that's an old guy talking, mm-hmm. But this guy was a part of every movement happening in the city. So he was connected to the Panthers, he was connected to Martin, he was connected to Malcolm, he was connected to the League of Revolutionary Black Workers, and he was connected to the workers movement that was happening in the city of Detroit, with like people like the Dodge Revolutionary, I forget what drum stands for, but union movement, that's what I think mm-hmm. it was. But he was a movement builder in the city of Detroit. And I wanted to open the album with him because he was able to contextualize why these young men are standing on the corner. It's not because they're evil or because, you know, they're detriments to society. It's because in a lot of ways that they were forgotten in their process and they were just surviving. But, you know, there's also an excerpt with the Electrifying Mojo talking, who the Electrifying Mojo was actually the guy that broke Prince. Like he played Prince before anybody else in the nation played Prince, when the album before that point was like kind of being swept under the rug. And so one of the first markets to really jump on Prince was Detroit. Mm-hmm. And the thing that Electrifying Mojo did, Electrifying Mojo set the template for all the music that happened in Detroit post Motown. Okay. So Mojo, he would play Parliament Funkadelic, he would play Depeche Mode, and he would play, you know, like he could play anything, you know. And that kind of led to the eclectic sensibilities of most Detroiters musically, because it was like a cultural phenomenon in the city listening to him. And so he also kind of set the stage for Detroit techno that was happening in the city at that time. Mm-hmm. So in a lot of ways, he kind of focused us sonically beyond that point, you know. And then you hear the woman talking, giving the sermon, and like that's Martha Jean the Queen, who was another legendary voice in the city of Detroit that centralized Detroiters, you know. Mm-hmm. At the end of the album, you hear, I think it was Larry Chambers from the Chambers Brothers, who, like, they basically introduced crack to the city of Detroit. Mm-hmm. And if I'm not mistaken, like they had a building that basically was you know, like basically the inspiration for the Carter in New Jack City.
Oh, okay.
You know?
Wow, that's crazy.
So,
That's
you
changed.
know, for me, like the history of this city is really rich, you
Okay.
know, and you know, you live in a city that, you know, is like I've had friends come here and they'll be like, man, Detroit is like Africa. You know, like it's black people everywhere, you know.
Right, right.
But I think it is such, to me, a beautifully layered example of all of the possibilities and potentialities of the Black experience that, like, I wanted to delve into that sonically too. Because one thing that happens is, like, I think sometimes people are in the hip hop or whatever, and they don't realize that like, you know, the jazz and the funk and all this stuff is like stuff that we created and expressed, you know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? And like, um, you know, so yeah, like sonically, I really wanted it to at the same time reflect the legacy of the city and the heart of the city and the fluidity of our relationship to music, you know, and sound. Like we appreciate a lot of stuff,
Yeah.
you know. Like I remember some of my New York guys being like, man, y'all Detroiters make some weird hip hop, like that
Yeah.
that Dilla shit is like weird, like it's
Yeah.
like
Yeah, that's crazy. I was listening to one of those posse cuts that recently showed up on Big Sean's album. I can't remember the name, but I'm listening to each MC and I'm like, and the beats too, and I'm like, yo, this joint is really, every rapper has a different style. Every single one. It's crazy.
yeah, like, because here's the thing too, that song, he made that song to mimic the ciphers that they would do Friday night on the radio.
God, yeah.
And it would just be the guy playing a whole bunch of beats and then like one beat after the other, and then somebody gets on the mic and then somebody else. And so they're like recreating how that is. But yeah, the thing too here is like I think we are a very southpaw kind of unorthodox kind of city too. Like Detroiters don't like doing shit the regular way.
Right. Yeah.
You know, and even like now, because there's a renaissance on the street side, you know, like with the band gangs and the Sadas and the T Grizzlies and the list goes on and on. Babyface Ray, all those guys, and like a lot of people are talking about how like, man, they rapping off beat, or like they rap it, you know, and like they're doing this thing where they're rapping kind of ahead of the beat, but it's a pocket. It's a pocket, you know, and if you notice too, you know, like Dilla, same thing. It's like it's a pocket, and I think a lot of times people have been all about the quantization, and Detroiters is like, no, there's a natural fluid movement that transcends the quantization. It's like you gotta feel it. You can't just ride the beast like a horse. Like you gotta feel the pockets in it. You know, it's to me it's an intimacy with the rhythm to where you have to be present to actually wrap yourself around it that way. You know.
Yeah.
And I think like that's in the spirit of the city.
How do you bring out the best in an artist? You know, that's what seems to be happening here as a
Thank you,
producer.
man. Thank you. I feel like my job is to actually create a space around them to where they feel like they can be who they intrinsically are. A lot of the times people bring their social self in the meetings and interactions with people. You know, like, no, man, talk to me the way you would talk to your grandmother. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, and I'll treat you like my child with the utmost respect, you know, like, and so I think my job is to be present in the way in which I become invisible, you know, and encourage them to kind of like slip into their truth, you know. And with him, it was funny because we were getting to the point where he would record something and not even want it.
Right.
Like he'd be leaving out the door. I'm like, you want to get this? At this time, he was like, I was burning CDs. I'm like, you want to get this on CD? And he's like, nah, I just had to get that off my chest. You know?
Yeah.
And so for me, I think the greatest thing that you can do creatively is allow yourself your most authentic process, because to me, like there's a energetic frequency to that then affects people in a way in which, because I look at it like this. It's like, you know, I was joking with somebody, like, it's weird to see, like, you know, people talk about the album next to fire emojis. And it's like, I don't really create fire.
Right. Right. They don't know what else to do though. They like it, but they don't know what else to put up there.
Right.
But you gonna put flowers, you gonna put, you know what I'm saying? You know.
Right.
You know, that's yeah.
So it's like, this is real, you know. It's like if you tell your heart and soul to somebody, like you spill your guts, like, and they'd be like, huh, I give that a 3.5 out of 5 stars.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah, that's
talking about your dog got ran over, your grandmother died, and your boy got shot.
Yeah.
They're like, I like it. It's like, you like
it.
Right.
But yo, that's kind of what it's come to. And I want to get your take on this too. Hip hop as sort of this pornography, like this poverty pornography, where we get on wax or whatever and just spill everything that's going on, and then it's purchased or streamed or whatever you want to call it, or even just purely entertainment. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And I always wonder, what does hip hop look like without that, or what does it look like for people to authentically look at that? Whether they, particularly those that don't live it, you know, and empathize with it or feel it, as opposed to it being like you looking into the jungle, like, oh, look what's happening, you know, what's happening over there, you know, look at that, wow, you know.
Like for me, the whole thing is ultimately, this may sound real esoteric, but I truly feel that we are all simultaneous incarnations of each other. Okay. And the reason that people disconnect and move in certain directions where they deal with only certain people and go to certain places, because they're trying not to be triggered. Mm-hmm. Because there's certain people that represent and reflect aspects of themselves that they're cutting themselves off from, mm-hmm. to assume these identities that are limiting. Mm-hmm. And so because people are moving through the world essentially in the cell that we call identity, that's limiting our ability to connect fully to things that are in actuality a part of us, we experience this thing in which now we internalize the pain of the amputation that we ensue when we disconnect ourselves from other people. Right. And sometimes in that disconnection, we want to connect, we want to feel a sense of connecting to something that we're actually disconnected from, mm-hmm. you know? So it's like, I want to feel like what it it means to be in the hood, but I don't really want to live
right. For sure.
in the hood, you know. So the thing is for me is actually what happens now when we create in a way in which we collapse into a truth that understands that actually you're a part of me. You're not separate of me. And one of the premises that I kind of like created Manger on was this idea that basically everybody has been a dealer. Everybody's been a drug dealer, right? Everybody's been a user because everything that we do as humans is the exchange of chemicals, right? Somebody says something to you, it produces a chemical that makes you feel a certain way, right?
Yeah.
And then we sometimes get prescriptions to certain, you know, we get prescriptions to certain chemicals that come from certain people, and we become dependent on those people.
Dopamine.
A
hug can create a chemical response.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I hear you.
So my thing is this: the need to attain the chemical stems from the disconnection that happens as a result of us amputating ourselves from other people, thinking that we're separate of other people. All right. That's why a lot of times we can get upset and not know why we upset, because we're actually feeling the energy of other people all the time. You know, that's the realest shit about all this COVID stuff. It's like, this proves that we are not separate.
Right.
At all. Like, we sharing this shit like
yeah. Definitely. Sharing it, trusting people that they don't have it, you know, everything. Yeah.
And you can get it from anybody.
Anybody.
You know.
Yo,
so
go ahead. No, go ahead.
Don't forget what you were saying. But yeah, so to me, it's like, what happens when now all of our action is geared toward attaining the thing or situation or whatever that we think is going to grant us a certain chemical, right? What happens when we actually allow ourselves to connect to a feeling in the process? Now that's empowerment.
Right.
And that's that's the switch that I wanted to happen. And Manger is like, for all the hell that he was going through, still like understanding that there is a flame within you that has the ability to like light your path no matter how dark it gets around you. And that's what it was about for me. And I think the thing is, it's not a drug dealer story at the end of the day. It's the human predicament. It's the human predicament of like, because of certain things that were broken in his experience coming up, it led him to a certain life to where he had to fend for himself, and he had to attain certain things to feel a sense of comfort. You know. And I think like, and there's merit to that. I think there has to be a switch though, where we understand that comfort is always based on condition, and condition is always going to change. But peace is unconditional. So as comfort works from the outside in, peace works from the inside out. Right. And so to me, subtly, and people may not get it off rip, but to me, Manger is about switching the paradigm to where sometimes we may feel afflicted by what's surrounding us, but ultimately we have the power to understand what's happening within us now transforms what's happening around us. And that was the beautiful part, is like, he realized when he told me, it's like, man, you realize my life changed after we did this process of me getting in touch with what I felt. You know what I'm saying? So, you know, to me, that's what it is ultimately. And like, people are gonna try to exploit and try to, you know, take what we do and twist it or whatever. But I think ultimately it's sort of like you can, no matter what people do mentally, I think that they can't shake what's happening internally. Like, you know what I'm saying? So like, I don't care what you think about what I did, but I know what I expressed came completely and solely from a place of love, and your heart received that regardless of what you cognitively think about it.
Right. I'm definitely putting this out there as a TED Talk for sure. You know, yeah. I'm telling you, this is, if you haven't done one yet, this is it. This is definitely it. This is it. Don't get on Clubhouse. I don't know if you're on there yet.
I don't even know what that is, bro.
Oh, okay. Then forget I said anything.
I'm coming to you. I'm coming to you now.
Nah, man, that's a beautiful take on it. And believe it or not, based on the reviews that I've seen, people got it. Definitely, people got it. Now, I always have to question if the right people got it, because sometimes I you know, the artsy folks, you know, they got it, but I want everybody to get it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know, yeah, for sure.
I think that's the crazy thing too, man. And this is why, like, I got so much love and respect for guys like Ka and Rock Marcy and like guys that was like, we from this culture, we can take it where we need to take it. You know, like they are really, like, to me, like, giving, like, and Arm& Hammer, and it's a whole bunch of guys like that. You know, Run the Jewels, but yeah, and it's I know exactly what you're saying, and it's funny because I think that you know, some people are definitely rocking with it on a very superficial level. But for people that have been through this experience, like, you can go through the ringer coming up here. You know what I'm saying? And like, this is definitely, I think, healing for people that have been, and everybody's been through that in one way or another. But like, yeah, this none of this is fabricated, bro. Like, this is a very honest, naked record, you know. And the thing about it too, like, and I give Boldy a lot of love and respect because you know, it was a departure from what people knew him for. And the thing about Boldy saw himself, like, if he believes in it, he's gonna roll with it no matter what, you know. But I think, you know, and I'm cool with the initial, like, there being some initial resistance to it, you know. Like, Ornette Coleman was beaten up for what he did outside the Village Vanguard, because people felt like he took it too far.
Yeah,
you know, people looked at Coltrane initially when he made Ascension, like he was messing up he was messing up bebop. He was messing things up. He was a destroyer of the music from that perspective. Now he's seen as a champion of it in a way, like he saved it.
Yeah.
And I think that what people don't realize is that what you like a lot of times is what you like because of how you've been conditioned.
Right.
And you can stick to the code of how you've been conditioned, but it will never allow you to receive the true fullness of yourself. I don't even create shit I like.
Wow.
It's not about liking shit, because liking and disliking is the same thing. It's a subjective response.
Right.
And so I say this to you, like, a lot of the things that I create, when I start something, I typically find an image that feels like where I'm going.
Okay. Well, you mean a visual or?
A visual.
Okay.
A visual. And now that focuses me. Like that image focuses me now. And now I'm not listening to sounds like I like it or I dislike it or it's good or it's bad. I'm just now creating to get completely inside that photograph to where I can smell the air in it.
Right, right.
You know what I'm saying? I could hear the sounds in it.
Mm-hmm.
I can feel the wind. I can hear the car screeching in it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's about me bringing a very specific thing to life, you know. And so what I'm saying is, to me, it's about unconditionalizing.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like I remember when Glaciers of Ice came out, and it was like, it was like, whoa.
Right, right, yeah. Woo.
That was not what was happening at the moment.
Right, right, right.
Right. And to me, they liberated sensibilities.
Mm-hmm.
And so to me, like, art that I cherish deeply is art that introduced me to the rest of myself.
Right.
I could stay in those familiar neighborhoods inside of myself the rest of my life.
Right.
But I'm infinite.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so when somebody to me has the courage to say, I'm not going to give you what you want.
Right.
I'm just going to create a portal into more possibilities.
Right, right.
And it's there if you need it.
Right, right.
You know, so
that's dope.
You know, and those people that's on it, the artsy people that's on it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, they're gonna jump to the next thing, the next thing, the next
yeah.
thing. But what I'm saying is, for people that have experienced anything in life that was real, there's something that has been created solely out of, you know, catharsis and truth that's always there for them when they're willing to step into it. And that's the beauty of it.
Mm-hmm.
It's like a parable. I remember, like, as a kid reading African proverbs or whatever,
mm-hmm.
and not getting certain ones. And then you come back 10 years later and you're like, I get that now.
Right, right, right.
You know.
That's crazy. Yo, that is so crazy. I'll be thinking about that. I mean, okay, I'm on a tangent right now, but
please be on it. I ain't got shit to do with COVID. So
no, but I'm in fact, my computer is on a bunch of books, including one called Camp's Unfamiliar Quotations from 2000 BC to the present. It's an old book, but I'm a quote fiend. But one thing I've noticed is that the quotes are always European, or they're Nietzsche or Freud or whatever. And I'm like, yo, is there a book on African proverbs? You know, every now and again I'm still on Tumblr. I don't know if you heard of Tumblr.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, all right.
Heard a few things.
Yeah, right. I'm still on there, but a lot of it is quotes, and I get some African quotes, but I'm just looking for more. But I feel exactly what you're saying, that some stuff it's good. It might take time to get it, or it might take time to process the artistry that you're putting out right now. And that's the crazy part about being faithful in the process.
Yeah. This is actually Boldy calling me right now, but I'm listening.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm calling him. You want me to get it or hit you back?
Go ahead and get it. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Yeah.
All right, cool.
He had to call me right back. That's
okay.
Okay. So yeah, you talking about the
yeah, no, it's just, well, yeah, I mean, I was kind of veering off, but just to say that we I feel like we need these deeper connections to whatever, you know, the motherland, or just different sources of inspiration. And I think school, it's funny, I have a thing that says school kills artists. And I'm an artist myself, but I haven't really tapped in for a really long time. And I think part of that goes back to school, where I was unable to fully exploit my talent because it wasn't a priority to the school system or the teachers and things. So it was like a secondary thing from my parents, and and whatnot. So outside of school, I would go to art classes and stuff. And then it was always secondary, but in the actual school, it was not that important. So it's cool talking to people like you, because then you start to see there are pathways to making things happen, even if it's non-traditional. But it sounds like you did go to this was cultivated in school. Is that accurate, or
I think I had a few experiences where it was, but I think in a lot of ways it wasn't.
Yeah. Right.
I think for me, it's like the culture itself. I mean, hip hop came out of people being excluded.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And people not being able to get into downtown parties. So it's like, hell, we're going to just take this electricity from the light pole and we can just go do this in the park. And,
right.
You know, we don't have access to instruments. We're going to turn a record player into an instrument, you know. And so I think limitation is extremely crucial.
Yeah.
And I think limitation is the greatest way to find the infinity within yourself.
Right.
You know, because that's the thing people don't see all the time too. It's like people want to act like privilege is the best shit in the world, but a lot of times, you know, privilege can be debilitating.
Yeah, a prison.
Because if everything was always given to you, you never really had an opportunity to see your ability to create and transform things, because it was always done for you.
Right.
You know, and so to answer your question, I feel like a lot of the situations that I've experienced from not having put me in a position to create. Like, you know, like I was a kid that, you know, we wouldn't have money for me to get certain toys. And so I started like making Transformers out of cardboard. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like I was able through my creativity to like realize that whatever I could use my creativity to ultimately arrive at anything that I would love to feel, to a point where I didn't even need the things that I once wanted.
Right.
Because that's the thing, we always so vehemently in pursuit of particular objects and attain those objects and realize that the energy that we sought those objects for ain't even there.
Yeah. Right.
And then we realize ultimately we've been running away from ourselves in pursuit of stuff.
Real talk.
You know, and to me, like, the funny thing about it, you know, and the reason that I haven't really tried to make a lot of moves with music is because how I've been eating is teaching kids how to make music.
Right.
But the funny thing is, you know, I got a degree in fine arts, but what I was using to eat was shit that I learned in the streets.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like
the irony.
You know, like I was teaching kids how to make music, and my homies taught me how to work that shit. I didn't learn that in school.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So, you know, I think, you know, for me, you know, a lot of times those structures can sometimes inhibit our growth, because they're created on criteria that has nothing to do with us making contact with our innate sensibilities. And those innate sensibilities are the things that embody our brilliance.
Right.
And so I feel like a lot of times limitation puts us in a position of where we have to go directly to our brilliance to figure out how to get out of it.
That's like being, like, as a writer, telling a story and making the word count 500 words, and you're like, you or even less, like 5 words. Tell a story in 5 words, and then you actually you get a dope story. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, man. You know.
Yeah.
So, and because I think about it too, is like is relative. Like the extent of something is just a container. But it's more about the potency of what's within the container than the container itself. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Yeah.
So the only circumstance in which the container becomes relevant now is because of what you're doing within it. So for example, it's like, you know, like a lot of people made jokes, and I love it, about like how long this record took.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm like, okay, if every action that was taken to create this record was an act of love, then people are experiencing 13 years of love worth of love when they hear it.
Wow, that's a
So
great way.
that time is a container now.
Right. Wow.
You know?
Yeah, for sure.
So, but at the same time, a container could be 5 seconds.
Mm-hmm.
And just the way like somebody sincerely looks at you with care and concern or consideration or compassion, that could be enough to fill you in that split second.
Yeah, no doubt.
You know what I'm
Yo,
saying?
I met Dr. Cornell West in the late '90s, and he said, and I told him I had never flown on an airplane before, and he said, what, three words? He said, "You gonna fly." he said, "Oh, you gonna fly." 4 words, and changed my whole life. I was like,
That's
oh
beautiful.
snap! Not only did I fly, but I ended up doing more than I ever imagined for myself. So
that's beautiful, bro.
Yeah, for sure. So tell me, what's next for you? Are you working with any more rappers, any more albums, instrumental albums? What's the next stage for you?
Bro, like, it's so funny. Like, people like, man, I know your phone ringing off the hook. I'm like, nah, it ain't. I'm doing the same shit.
Really? Wow.
I was doing, but you know, I mean, Boldy my brother, so it's like, you know, we gonna be making more stuff. You know, I don't know what that's gonna look like. You know, which that's the exciting part about it.
Mm-hmm.
Because I don't care. I'm a person that I don't care to do the same thing twice. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, right.
But to be real with you, man, like I said to myself when I realized that this was taking off a little bit more than I thought it was.
Yeah, right.
That like my mission stays the same.
Yeah.
And I don't ever want to get to a point where I'm moving so fast that I'm denying like the appropriate intimacy to me that it takes to make thorough shit.
Mm-hmm.
And so like the people that you hear on the album, like I sat and built with for a long time. Like it's a result of real relationships.
Mm-hmm.
So to be real, I don't know. I mean, I'm always making stuff. You know what I'm saying? So, but what's immediately next is a jazz record, or like a jazz record that I'm working on, with a pianist and a woodwinds player, and I'm doing some stuff for them. But yeah, man, like I'm open, but at the same time, it's like we see, because I'm not. I was telling my cousin yesterday, like I'm not much about forcing relationships either.
Yeah, right.
You know, like to me, I feel like we embarking on a process is deeper than making music.
Yeah, right.
You know, and I want the music to be a reflection of a real collective process. Not we just trying to make some moves and get out here. Like Boldy is my brother. You know what I'm saying? Like, you know, that's my baby. Like we raised him, you know, and his music stuff. So yeah. And then Louis, who's on the record, who's on. I'm gonna be doing some stuff with Louis too, though.
Okay.
Who's on the record? Louis P. Newton.
Okay. And
you know, that was definitely a nod to Illmatic, the one feature, right. thing. I always felt like that was so powerful to have like that one that one feature, you know. But yeah, man, so it's open because here's the thing too, like I never know where I'm going sonically either, because I'm just a passenger in that sense, you know. Like it's times I've like set out to make an R&B track with somebody, and it ended up being 140 BPMs and like some other shit, you know.
Right.
And that was the thing about Boldy, because like that shit did not sound like that when Boldy rapped over it.
Right.
And he let me like just continue to grow and build it. But the thing is, at the same time, his lyrics wrote the music.
Right. Got you. Yeah.
That's you know, crazy. So like everything blossomed out of what he was saying, you know. So yeah, I don't know, bro. I like
Nah, but that's dope. It's a journey though. It's a journey. So
yeah, man, it's like, you know, for me, like I like not knowing.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Because what we know is always limited, and what we don't know is infinite. So if you create from the unknown, then you basically create an infinity every time you do something.
Nice.
You know, so, you know, I kind of prefer uncertainty.
Well, we in
because that's where I get most certain about my truth. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yo, man, I just want to say thank you for your time, man. I appreciate this,
man. Thank you, bro. Like I, you know, I appreciate your spirit, man. Like you feel solid, bro. Like
thank you.
It's been great.
Kier is my man, though, man. I've known Kier forever. I don't know where, I forget exactly where we met, man, but we're both like comic nerds, man. So I go to every single Comic-Con I can, and I think we met on some comic book stuff, and then went from there. So he's super.
Kier is a serious collector, man. Like, I remember he always said he had the Shazam versus Superman comic. Like,
wow, that's an OG.
Yeah, and I was like, man, like, where the hell did you get that from? You know, but like, yeah, he was serious about it, man. But yeah, that dude got me into it from an early age, man. Like, you know, and you know, he was giving me records when I was like 7 or 8.
Yeah.
You know, so a lot of this, like he set a lot of this off for me.
Yeah.
You know, like he was my gateway into the culture as it was forming. You know?
Yeah, I appreciate him because he pushes me, and then I'll be like, "Yo, man, I'm tired," or "Yo, I'm overworked," or something. You know, don't have time, and he'll just, "Yo, I'm doing this thing in Asia," or "Yo, you need to talk to these dudes in Bali," or whatever. You know, something random, and I'll be like, "Oh man, all right." So, yeah, salute here. Yeah, no doubt.
Yeah, you still in New York?
I'm in Jersey, man. Actually, so I'm I ain't been in New York in since this whole thing popped off, man, for real. And
I feel you.
And a part of me hates it because I'm a New Yorker at heart. Like, I don't care. I haven't lived in New York in quite a while, but I go there and stay there so much that it's that much a part of my life. So I miss the city, but I also have adapted and been able to really create during this crazy time to do some dope stuff without having to go to the city all the time. So it's been efficient, but I still like wish I could be up in there a little bit more. But I'm not trying to catch COVID, man, and I don't want to live in fear. But yeah, so that's that.
I mean, like, to me, it's like, you know, shit can wait.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, like it's better than being dead.
Yeah,
you know?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So the city will be there, and when it's there, it'll probably be more interesting anyway. You know what I mean? You know
right.
You talk about the way hip hop started. I'm like, yo, let's take it back a little bit. I'm cool with that. You know, not the, you know, that gentrification was real, bro. Like when I lived in Brooklyn, you couldn't, you know, you had your head on a swivel. You had, you know, I mean, it disappeared. A lot of that disappeared. Yeah. So.
I tell people all the time, like friends out in Brooklyn, it's like, try this motherfucker in the 90s. Brooklyn in the 90s was some whole different shit.
Yeah, super different. And I wasn't even hitting New York heavy back in the 90s. At the end of the 90s, I started going to New York a lot. But just from Delaware, I still lived in Delaware, so I was back and forth. Right. I didn't move there until 2000, and then it was reeled in. So I can't imagine.
Man, it was real, bro. Like, I mean, and it was funny to me, too, because, like, at that time, Brooklyn felt closer to the energy of Detroit.
Right, yeah, I can imagine. Bruh, I can only imagine because people told me, I mean, it wasn't like last year or nothing, but recently enough, they like, yo, don't even stop at the gas station. Like, you can't stop. If you do, something's gonna happen.
Nah, bro. Yeah. Like, you go to the gas stations,
right. Right. Oh man, that's crazy.
Like you pick and choose your establishments, man. Like,
yeah.
There's I don't know if you ever heard, but there's a McDonald's on the west side that everybody called the Murder Mac. Because that's where a multitude of hits have been made.
Yeah.
At that,
right?
Because of the way the driveway is constructed, where people get trapped, and so it's like a lot of people have got caught slipping at the Murder Mac.
No, sir. That's why I stay good with Detroit, man. I did it by accident, but now that I know, I stay good with Detroit. I love Detroit, man. I got Detroit jackets, Detroit versus everybody, coats. Trust me, I got everything. But
that came from real shit, bro. Like, that came from real shit. Like, that's how everybody felt for real, man. It was like we were like an island, bro. Like, nobody was messing with us, man. So it's like,
right.
Hey, we got to figure this out ourselves, bro.
Yeah, well, that's why I'm glad to be from Delaware, man, because it allows me to not have that New York sort of attitude like that New Yorkers are known for. Because when I first moved to
but y'all still East Coast guys too, though.
Yeah. We
like
still.
My uncle is from Delaware. And
okay.
Like, yeah. So,
no. Delaware is solid, man. I was talking to Hex, and I was like, yo, man, I really want to build Delaware up like Detroit, man. Y'all got so many styles and so much diversity. You know, if you're in Wilmington, you know, it's a city. But if you drive an hour and a half, 2 hours, you in the country. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's straight hit, super like red Confederate flags and all that. So it's a crazy state to grow up in and experience all that it has to offer. So I definitely kind of in my brain model what I hope to envision at one point for Delaware, similar to Detroit, just in that y'all have so much different styles and diversity, man.
But you know, the thing about it too, I think it's several things. Like, one, like, I think it's so important to have physical spaces for people to go to build community. Like, so we had the hip hop shop, we had St. Andrews, you know, the shelter.
Yeah.
You know, we had Ebony Showcase Lounge. We had a lot of facilities throughout those years too.
Yeah.
Where you build rapport with people over that time. You leave the club at 2 and then y'all freestyling in the car for another 4 hours, you know, until the sun come up. But I think like having physical spaces is important, because that's one thing too. Like, I realize even with this generation here, is I assume that the internet brought people closer together, but in a lot of ways, it was a whole bunch of young people I was meeting that didn't know each other on the scene. It's like, man, like, y'all already seem like y'all are part of the same crew and y'all know each other, you know?
Right, yeah.
And so, like, my role in the community is like plugging a lot of people together, you know?
Yeah.
And, you know, like, I love doing that. Like, you know, like, introducing Marv to these young producers or this to them or, you know.
Yeah.
But, like, I think, like, that's so important, is, like, to have spaces for people to like build rapport, you
That's
know.
dope.
And I feel like that's the foundation of a scene too. And as far as the diversity goes, I think the funny thing about it is because we don't really have like mass transit in the city, you got to get everywhere by a vehicle.
Right.
Like it's easy to kind of get in your own world sometimes too, to where like it's people kind of making their own thing and then they come together. But like everybody kind of is in their own world, and then the worlds collide at some point. But like a lot of times, you know, guys, because like everybody's kind of doing their own thing. Because like Boldy's the kind of guy too, where it's like he's kind of like Proof in the sense that Proof is ubiquitous.
Right.
Like Proof was the one guy at that time that was like, because there is to some degree a divide between like the street guys and the underground hip hop guys, kind of, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like them and Cross. And like Proof is one of those guys that was cool with all of them.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like, and Boldy is kind of like that too, where like he moves around. Like Boldy is, you know, Boldy would do a song with Sada Baby, and then he could turn around and do a song with Guilty Simpson.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It ain't a lot of guys in the city. I mean, it's not a lot of guys like that, you know, but, you know, this city is kind of set up so where like, you know, people go where they go and do what they do and like build within that. But actually this new generation, like I love these guys because like they get it. Like where our generation was competitive as shit. Like, cause everybody felt like it was one spot.
Right.
And we all fighting for this one spot.
Right.
These young boys, their mentality is like, we all can get it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we can all get it together.
Right. And
you could plug your people in with my people, and I could plug my people in.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And that's what's been so dope about all of it. It's like they all in each other's videos.
Yeah. That's the way it should. That's the way it should be. I mean, I feel like that's working to our benefit now in hip hop. But I always think about it if we had done that back in the day. Obviously, we wouldn't have like all these dope moments and all these incredible like historic spots. But you know, we also probably lost out a lot. A lot of our power was lost in that competition too. You know, or
absolutely, man.
Fragmented, yeah, for sure. Yeah, or just fragmented.
Yeah. Like I think, you know, because the thing is like a lot of times too, some of the greatest guys are the ones that never get heard.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that's the thing too, is like a lot of people move with the assumption that like if I ain't heard it, it don't exist, or like if I ain't heard of him, he must not be that good.
Right.
You know, like we know people that influence superstars that don't nobody know, but we know. You know what I'm saying?
Definitely.
You know, and we hold them up and we celebrate them. You know what I'm saying? Like Dre is one of them people. Like I always tell him when I see him, like, bro, like you was a superhero to me when I was a kid.
Yeah, definitely. Tell
like,
him all hip hop loves on some Dre, loves on him, man. For real. Yeah, man. My brother and me, we used to love that dude. There's a lot of guys like him who we still listen to, still look up to this day, you know. Yeah, man. Well, look, I gotta run, man. I got your info though. I'm gonna shoot you a text.
Here's the thing, bro. You said what?
I'm gonna send you all my info.
Please, bro, because this is one thing to me. This is the only thing I don't like about doing interviews is that I'm being interviewed and I'm used to having conversations. Like I want to know the person. Like I want to know what you're doing.
Right. Yeah, no doubt, man. I actually let me stop recording.